Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Hello and welcome to the Sports Ballers podcast. I'm Corey Puffett, joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. This is episode 130, and this is our Super Bowl 55 post-game show. Fun day for us to wrap up the NFL season, talk a little bit about our takeaways from the season as a whole, but in particular the big game on Sunday between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Not a particularly exciting game. Tampa Bay blew out the Chiefs 31-9, but we'll talk more about that a little bit later in the show. We do have a few non-NFL things to talk about this week. Last week was pretty much all football. So let's start with Major League Baseball. This week we got the news that they are going to run back the 7-inning doubleheaders that were introduced last season. Eric is shaking his head. I know you at home can't see that, but Eric, why don't you go ahead and tell us why you don't like that?
Well, we talked about it last year. It felt kind of unnecessary. We've got players out there interacting for 3 hours a game and God knows how many hours before the game and then a certain number of hours after the game. And so I guess the idea is cutting down on the number of total innings that are out there is somehow going to prevent COVID from spreading. It seems like it's a Band-Aid for a bullet wound, and it doesn't actually make the game better. Baseball is meant to be played for 9 innings. Like, why are we shortening the games?
So my question then is, because I haven't seen the details as to why they decided to go with this. My understanding was that this is something that they're adopting potentially permanently, not just for the 2021 season. Is this specifically to, again, prevent the spread of COVID? Because I've seen some managers come out in support of this and say, I was really skeptical about this going into 2020, but it worked. I didn't mind it. It's fine. And I get that it's a little bit gimmicky and baseball's meant to be played 9 innings. Honestly, my biggest issue with this is, as a fan, if I'm going to a stadium, am I going to get refunded some money for my ticket if now it's only a 7-inning game instead of 9 innings? But I guess my first question in all of that was, what did you see that led you to believe that this is just for this season, or that it's specifically to try and quell the spread of COVID?
I mean, what else would it be? Is this supposed to be some hip new way to make us enjoy doubleheaders more?
That was my impression from all of this, because there wouldn't really be any other reason to do that this year. This year doesn't seem to be, obviously COVID is still raging, it's still an issue, and they're implementing some more measures that we'll talk about in regards to that. But I don't think that they would make that change for this season if they weren't planning for it to be permanent at this point.
I mean, I think you're accusing the people in charge of Major League Baseball of knowing what they're doing, right? Like
that's a pretty serious accusation. I would not be caught dead making that accusation.
Yeah, like they're just throwing stuff at the wall and like, oh well, let's try this and but not really addressing the fundamental issues in the game. So they say the games are too long. Well, let's just artificially make them shorter. And the problem here is not the games are taking too long, is that there's not enough action in that time period, right? Like college football games all take 4 hours each when nobody's complaining that it takes too long. So, I mean, I honestly don't know what Major League Baseball is doing with the 7-inning doubleheaders thing. I think this is stupid. Like, but it was kind of pointless last year too. to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it on the show. Eric made the same point back in, I guess it was around May or so that we started getting news about what they were going to do, and
the double headers thing they implemented in the middle of the season though. Like they didn't start doing that until like late July is when they announced.
That's right.
Double
That
headers
was a
are
late
going
addition.
to be played 7 innings apiece, and that was done after the season had already gotten rolling. So it was definitely like a hockey style. Like I don't know how familiar you guys are with the NHL, but the NHL has had situations where they've literally changed the rules between periods, like where they said this is no longer allowed during intermissions. So it kind of felt something like that, where it's just like we're just making it up on the fly, which was fine last year, given the circumstances of COVID and the fact that nobody really knew what the hell was going to happen and what to make of any of this. But we've had a year now to prepare for this and to handle these situations. And if you're right, Corey, that this doubleheader thing is completely independent of the pandemic and the situation that brings about, then this is even more moronic than I thought. Because at least I thought there was some level of judgment being provided to the extenuating circumstances, not just, hey, let's switch it up and change doubleheaders for the first time in 140 years. Because why would you do that?
I mean, doubleheaders, I guess they're a little more common now in light of the pandemic with, games being postponed just constantly. But I feel like this is really not a solution to the problem. Like you're just saying you changed something, like this is supposed to address an issue that's, this doesn't really work. Like what, just why, right? Like what purpose does this serve? Because it doesn't really do anything.
Like I said, my biggest concern, I think, is just that if I'm actually at the stadium for these games, I'm gonna want a refund on some of my ticket cost because I'm not getting what I paid for. When you buy a ticket for a baseball game, you're expecting at least 9 innings of baseball.
Well, you're going to get 14 if you go to a 7-inning doubleheader.
Well, usually, though, a lot of times those tickets are not good for both games. A lot of times, one ticket is good for the early game, and then the ticket that was initially for that day is good for the late game.
Yes, but when you have a 7-inning doubleheader, they just play them back to back.
Is that how they did that for all of them last year?
For all the ones that I saw, yes.
Okay. Well,
they just took a little break for some reason. I don't know why you wouldn't just play all 14 innings all in a row.
No, fair enough. I guess I don't have as much of a problem with it as you and Eric do then, but clearly you guys are very much on that side of the line.
Why are you shortening a game? That's the big thing. Is you are shortening a Major League Baseball game.
Okay, but we're also likely shortening Major League Baseball games by adding a man on second in extra innings, which is also being brought back from last year. Evan was a huge fan of that, and so were we, Eric. I think both of us kind of got on board with that as well.
But that doesn't shorten the game in the sense that, you're taking at-bats and time off the clock, so to speak.
You are potentially, as far as extra inning games go. We didn't have a single game go beyond 13 innings last year, and I think before that, we hadn't had a season in decades that didn't have a 17-inning game in it.
I would say there's a little bit of a difference between altering your overtime rules to make sure that the games get finished in expedited fashion than altering regulation, which is what you've done. It's like shortening a football game and saying we're only going to play 45 minutes this week. It doesn't make any sense.
Fair enough.
Versus changing the overtime rules.
Fair enough.
Which they do all the time.
Which the NFL did by shortening from 15 to 10 minutes. So, point taken.
I thought that was pointless too.
So
they said player safety. Like, okay.
2 big omissions from the rules that have been adopted, at least so far for the upcoming season. There is still time to make some changes. Right now, no universal DH, but that was a very last-minute thing. I think last year, then no expanded playoffs, which was even more last minute. They literally decided to expand the playoffs like half an hour or an hour before the first pitch of the 2020 season.
It was after the first game started.
Was it after the first game started? Even worse.
Your Yankees played.
Last year, Major League Baseball expanded to a 16-game postseason. They wanted to make it 14 teams. 16 teams last year. They wanted to make it 14 teams for this year, but so far no dice there. Major League Baseball also announced that there will be some more measures put in place for contact tracing and rules on behavior related to COVID protocols. For example, when they're on the road, they'll have to get permission before leaving their hotel. But vaccines will not be mandatory for the players.
I want to go back to the no universal DH or expanded playoffs.
Sure.
Like this wasn't an agreement from Major League Baseball and the players. This was yet another ceasefire. Like the universal DH is something that would help the players, and the expanded playoffs is something that would help the owners.
And a lot of people would say that universal DH not only would help the players, but would also help the game as a whole by drawing in more fans potentially.
Well, nobody in charge cares about the game as a whole. Like that's
yes, we've talked about that ad nauseum.
The game as a whole, like what? They just care about the money. So like if they expand the playoffs, the owners get a whole bunch more money. But universal DH doesn't really make that same impact for the players. So the owners proposed universal DH and expanded playoffs, saying, well, this helps both of us. And the players like, no, but it helps you more. So they're like, oh, we'll fight. We'll just not fight about this today.
Yeah.
But they didn't come to an agreement. There's no...
Right. And like I said, like this is not there's definitely not going to be either of these for this season. It's just that at least so far they have not, come to an agreement on that.
Do we know for sure that spring training starts next week? Have they decided that there is going to be a season? Because there was whispers from the bushes.
I think you would know that better than I would, to be honest.
That they were like, oh, well, let's just push it back.
You're the one who keeps track of exactly what day the catchers are going to report and what day the pitchers are going to report.
16th for the Orioles.
So you tell me if it's definitely going to happen. A memo leaked this week from Major League Baseball saying to deaden the baseballs. Eric, why don't you take us through that?
I mean, it's pretty much speaks for itself. Major League Baseball has been accused by certain players and certain members of the media and certain fans that they had juiced the balls in previous years, which was a contributing factor to all the home runs we're seeing, which I don't think is completely explains the issue when it came to the home runs, but it certainly was part of it. I don't have any doubt that the baseballs were different, whether it was intentional, unintentional, whether it was a change that they made without anticipating the results, or if they just straight up said, we want to see more home runs. I don't care what it is. The balls were different. As a result, they were flying further. That's indisputable based on the data. So some complaints have been levied about the nature of baseball because it's pretty much a swing for the fences league at this point. The emphasis on contact and putting the ball in play has been significantly lessened because of power pitching, making it more difficult to do so. The constant bullpen in and outs, which means fresh pitchers all the time, makes it more difficult to hit. And, of course, shifts as well have made it more difficult to get hits on balls that end up in the field of play. So hitters have been focused more on hitting the ball out of the park, throw in the addition of some advanced metrics like launch angle and things like that. And the emphasis on the long ball has increased because the best hit you can get is a home run, regardless of what some people might say where they say, oh, you killed your own rally by hitting a grand slam. I'm like, are you high?
You scored 4 runs.
Yeah, it's like, well, but now we don't have any runners on base. Like, yeah, because they all scored.
Because they all, met their goal. They all did what they were supposed to do.
It's like we would rather have
complaining they don't have enough gold-plated bedrooms.
It's like what? It's complaining about not having more potential runs because they all scored. It's insane, But
I'd rather have the actual runs.
I understand why they did this, though, because, they feel that a big part of the reason why baseball's popularity is waning is because the interest in the games has dropped because of the lack of action. And so the idea is to de-emphasize the home run, require more balls be put in play this way, which I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. The expectation is that the deadening of the baseballs will only reduce their flight by 1 to 2 feet on balls that are hit like 350 to 400 feet. So you might see a couple of wall scraper home runs turn into warning track fly balls, but we're not talking about, no doubters suddenly becoming cans of corn or anything like that. That's not going to happen. So I think this is mostly a non-story, other than the fact that it feels almost like a sort of an under the rug admittance that they did this in the first place.
Right.
But the actual effect on the game, I don't think is going to be significant.
Yeah. So I believe the biggest difference with the baseballs going forward is going to have to do with the lacing or the way that they seam them. It's supposed to, I guess, cause maybe just a little bit more drag, or I think it's supposed to actually lighten the ball a fraction while not making it any smaller.
I agree with you, Eric, that the most interesting part of this is not that MLB made this announcement, is that this was supposed to be a secret and it got leaked, right? They were deadening the ball and they weren't going to tell anybody. But we found out about it inadvertently. So that's, that this is really what we're finding out, is that they're behind the scenes tweaking all the time and they don't want anybody to know about it.
Well, I mean, but this is, before I was ready to move on to the next topic, but kind of on that point, you look at what happened with the Houston Astros and them tipping pitches, or not even tipping pitches, but stealing signs. We found out later on that Major League Baseball had been basically covering that up, that everybody knew that they were doing this. The Athletics third base coach knew that they were doing it, I think tried to say something and got annoyed because the Astros were getting mad at him when they thought that he was stealing signs from the catcher. And it's like, we all know that you're doing this and you're going to have the gall to come at us. But nobody admitted anything until John Boy basically kind of broke the story by showing it on tape. So
yeah, John Boy was the one who outed them, not any officials at Major League Baseball, just a guy on YouTube,
right? Who has since definitely gotten his name out there because of this. So Baseball America ranked your guys' Orioles farm system 7th in Major League Baseball. Meanwhile, Keith Law, whom I've never heard of and who I guess you guys probably don't like very much, ranked at 18th. So why the discrepancy there?
Because Keith Law hates the Orioles. I don't know why, but this is typical of Keith Law to just crap on the Orioles whenever he can.
Yeah, Evan's right. I respect Keith Law's baseball acumen. I think he's a smart guy, but he's consistently been below the consensus when it comes to the Orioles farm system for dating back a decade plus. This isn't just this specific crop of prospects that he doesn't seem to like. This goes back to even when the Orioles had prospects back in the mid to late 2000s that turned into a bunch of guys that were a part of a playoff team that consistently made playoff runs for about 5 years, and he didn't like them either. So
now, okay, so that particular crop of minor leaguers ended up being good. They contributed to you guys making the playoffs. He didn't like them, but what did Baseball America think of that group at the time? Was he also way lower on them than Baseball America?
He has been consistently below the consensus. He's underrated the Orioles relative to the average.
Got it.
I think that when it's that consistent, he's got a blind spot. Maybe there seems to be some level of bias there, which is fine. It doesn't matter what Keith Law thinks. It doesn't matter what any of us think. It matters what happens on the field. So if Keith Law says the prospects suck, then okay, that's his opinion. He's entitled to it. But at the end of the day, I think that they're going to be pretty good, and the rest of the baseball viewing world seems to agree with people like me and Evan who have reason to be optimistic about the future of the Orioles, whereas Keith Law seems to be anti-Orioles. That's fine, but doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm optimistic, and especially within the last maybe year or so, Mike Elias has just been robbing teams of their prospects. The Braves traded for Tommy Malone and gave up 2 prospects. The guy had a 14.9 ERA with the Braves. He was terrible.
It wasn't like he was that good with the Orioles either. So
his ERA was I think it was under 4. He was having a good year, and then he gets traded to the Braves and he's awful.
Okay, but everybody with any sense knew that was fool's gold. That Tommy Malone.
Not the Braves.
Yeah, the Braves got fleeced, and that's credit to. That's when you've got to pull the trigger on guys like Tommy Malone who are having surprisingly good years, and you just send them out of town and you get actually good players, or at least some prospects that you might be able to. You got something for nothing, basically. So that's always a good trade.
the Michael Givens deal to the Rockies, and some guy we traded somebody to the Mets last year. I want to say we got a prospect from them too. Like what? Why do you want anybody from the Orioles? Frankly, like why would you trade for those guys? So that I think that's good. Just having depth in the farm system, because not all of these guys, I mean, all the top ranked prospects and whatnot, not all of these guys are going to turn out to be good. Like some of them are just going to be terrible, right? There's a Brian Mattis in there somewhere. So we keep having more and more guys come up, we're eventually going to build a good team out of them.
Last bit of baseball news, a little more somber news. Pedro Gomez, an ESPN reporter, one of the best baseball journalists with ESPN, died unexpectedly on Sunday at the age of 58. Unless there's been some late breaking news, I don't think that we know the cause of death at this time. I know that his son is a pitcher in the Red Sox organization, but I think Evan and Eric, you guys, I know Pedro Gomez, I know his face, and I've certainly heard some of his reports, but you guys consistently follow baseball a little more closely than I do, so I'll let you guys kind of talk about your thoughts on Pedro Gomez.
Pedro Gomez just seemed like such a positive, delightful person, and you could tell. I mean, people who cover baseball, like it's such a grind, and like you really have to love it. And it was abundantly clear every time he was on television that he absolutely loved the game of baseball. And people who are baseball fans love it too. So I appreciated that from him. He seemed like such a positive influence on everybody. I mean, I obviously never worked with him, but like everybody who worked with him and has since talked about how he had such a positive impact on their lives, and how he's such a good friend and coworker. So he certainly will be missed.
Yeah, every time you turned on ESPN for baseball coverage or anything like that, whether it was a breaking news story, I remember he was prominent when Barry Bonds was chasing down Hank Aaron's home run record, and that's obviously not always the most exciting beat to be on because of all the controversy surrounding Barry Bonds, but he was the face of it, and he kind of had to carry the ESPN brand for something that was a big deal. I mean, that is the home run record, regardless of how many asterisks you throw on whatever. That is still the crown jewel record in American sports. Like, there's nothing bigger than being the home run king, and he was the man who brought you the news day by day as that was happening. I remember he was on TV when Ryan Braun's situation with PEDs came up, and he was just a consistent face of baseball for ESPN a lot of the time. He reminded me a little bit of Sal Palantonio, like how he is with the Philadelphia Eagles, where it's just like every time there's an Eagles story, Sal Pal's on TV. Every time something interesting happened with baseball, it was Pedro Gomez that they cut to, and he had such a professionalism about him. Like Evan said, a lot of joy, a lot of love for the game. And, baseball needs guys like that because, like Evan said, it's a grind. It's becoming a bit of like we come on here and we talk baseball and we love baseball, but we also bitch about baseball all the time. And so.
And we generally dedicate a very limited portion of our show to it.
Yeah, and usually it's just complaining about the crappy new rules and whatnot. So baseball is in a bit of a tough space, and it's guys like that with that unbridled enthusiasm that you need. Guys like Pedro Gomez, guys like Tim Kurkjian, who just love the game of baseball, and so he's going to leave a void that's going to be impossible to fill.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I mean, we talk about this a lot when we listen to some of the old heads who are on broadcasts for baseball, calling games on ESPN and whatnot, who are complaining about the rules and, the whole, back in my day kind of vibe. And just, that's not the way to increase interest in your sport. And those guys, as the voices of the sport, should be the ones doing their darndest to, get people interested. So, it is important to have guys like that. And it is a shame, we've lost Pedro Gomez at such a relatively young age. Moving on, we got one quick NBA topic. I'm sure we'll get some more on the NBA from Eric next week, since he'll be hosting. But like many of you, this week I saw a headline pop up on ESPN that the Mavericks have stopped playing the national anthem in their arena, and I clicked on it to read the story, and I was left with this impression of, why is this a story? Because it turned out this was not some recent development. This wasn't some recent decision by the Mavericks to stop mid-season. They haven't played the national anthem in their stadium in any of the 13 regular season and preseason games that they've played at home this year. And apparently people are just now finding out. And I still wasn't sure that I was going to bring this up on the show. But then over the past 24 hours, I've been seeing tweets about this and people talking about how Mark Cuban just can't avoid controversy. I'm like, you didn't even notice this. Why are we talking about this? So I don't know if either of you have any thoughts on this or if we can just move on, but I had to bring it up because of how ridiculous it is that it's even being talked about.
I want to talk about it because playing the national anthem before sporting events, I mean, that doesn't go all the way back to the beginning of time, right? Like, it's only within, I think, since like World War II that it's been every single game we have to do this. So, I like what there's no point having it anymore. Like, why do we have to sing this song for every game? We don't do that for any other activity.
And apparently their opponents, like, they didn't say anything. If they noticed it, they didn't comment on it. So it's not like it's really been missed.
Basketball, right?
So it's just funny, and I mean it also. I guess in some ways it's almost worth talking about just because of the big picture of the story, which is that back in 2017, when some NBA players started kneeling for the anthem, Mark Cuban kind of was on the opposite side of the fence where he was saying, I'll be standing for the anthem. I expect the players to be standing for the anthem. And he's kind of done a complete 180 in the 3 years since then. So, I mean, it was worth hearing from him because somebody did, ask him about this and quoted him saying something to the effect of, I like to think that I've grown in the past 3 years. And I think it's important that people do acknowledge, that sometimes your opinions need to change. Sometimes, you're a little bit closed-minded and you need to think about things from a different perspective. And he certainly has seemed to do that.
Yeah, unfortunately, the NBA came in and put the kibosh on the whole not playing the anthem thing today. Adam Silver came out and said that it's expected that all 30 NBA teams will play the national anthem.
But do you think that they're actually going to enforce that? Because in the NBA rulebook, there is also a rule that players have to stand for the national anthem, and so far the NBA has decided not to actually enforce that.
Yeah,
and we like that. We think that that's the right thing to do. Mark Cuban seems to think that's the right thing to do. But do we think they're actually going to enforce the anthem rule?
I think they will because they said something. Like, Silver has acknowledged that he's not enforced the whole stand for the anthem thing, but the fact that he went out of his way to say this needs to happen, that implies to me that he expects that and that he's going to follow up on that. And I agree with Evan. Even in my days of, being gung-ho America type of guy, I still didn't enjoy the national anthem being played before sporting events. I thought it was a pain in the ass, 2-minute period of time that I had to do something other than watch what I came to watch, which is the game. And it's like this unnecessary ritual where I'm just like, I'm over it. And I just, like, I would turn to people in the crowd and people would look at me and say I was being disrespectful, particularly when it was somebody singing the national anthem in a drawn out fashion. And I would just be doing the Judge Judy, let's get this show on the road. I'm tired of this. And that's another thing. Is like the main thing that I hate about it really is when somebody actually performs it and I'm just like praying that they don't mess it up or sound like crap, because it's just so uncomfortable watching somebody try to perform and butcher the national anthem. Kind of like Fergie did during the All-Star game. It's just like, do we need to do this? Like, do we need to force the patriotism in such a ham-handed and potentially cringeworthy way. Like it's unnecessary.
I do remember many a time standing next to you in the Maryland crowd as we're hearing the national anthem, and you are just tapping away at your invisible watch on your wrist.
Like just let
Come on.
the pep band play the song. They do it respectfully and they get it done in a quick fashion. Like, move on. The whole singing the national anthem for 2 minutes, which prop bet was a win, but still, I mean,
5 minutes like Aretha Franklin.
yeah, it's just so unnecessary, and frankly, I also did not know until recently that this is a relatively new thing, that this is not something that's been around forever, and particularly having the players on the floor has been pretty much exclusively a thing since post 9/11.
Yep.
In order to gin up some, it's basically paid patriotism for the military, which is its own form of politics. If we want to keep politics out of sports,
even.
Having the military show up and wave the flag around is the definition of politics. So.
Yep.
Fly giant airplanes over the most watched television event of the year.
Yeah, you gotta flex those.
We gotta
flex those F-16s,
or whatever. So, yeah. So I have never at any point in my life had the national anthem on my iPod. I don't intend ever to. It just it doesn't do anything for me.
Don't listen to it all the time. First thing in the morning when you get up.
Hell no.
It's not a part of my life. Sorry.
So let's go ahead and move on to the big topic, the Super Bowl. Bucks beat the Chiefs 31-9. Tom Brady, the MVP, went 21 for 29 for 201 yards and 3 touchdown passes. I got the game right. I got the MVP right, or rather, my Madden simulation did. So you guys can shut up about how Madden's not real, because clearly it's more real than either of your guys' imaginations.
That's true. You gotta give him credit. Madden was within 5 on both scores.
Yep, and Madden even had they even had a 1-yard touchdown for the Buccaneers. Granted, mine was a Leonard Fournette touchdown run instead of a pass to Rob Gronkowski, but yeah, I mean it honestly, outside of the fact that the Chiefs just looked terrible, a lot of what happened in my game ended up being kind of real. The Bucks defense was really, really good, and if anything got better in the second half when I switched to the Chiefs, and we saw the same thing in the Super Bowl. It only got better as the game wore on.
Yeah, Madden predict the Chiefs O-line allowing a jailbreak of the Buccaneers defensive line every single snap?
Not quite that. It didn't quite go that far.
They didn't block anybody.
It definitely resembled Russell Wilson against the Rams twice a year, where you just see the entire offensive line shift position with the defensive line. It's like they just ran right through them like they were, invisible or something. It was insane.
Yeah, there was a guy the Ravens had in the preseason one year named O'Neal Cousins, who earned the nickname Turnstile, and he didn't make the team out of camp. So it's just
the 1-yard touchdown was Antonio Brown. Corey, was not.
Oh, that's right. That was the Antonio Brown one.
Yes, that was right before the half, and then a whole lot of smack talk ensued, and with Tyrann Mathieu and Tom Brady. So, but yeah, it was a complete beatdown. I mean, the game reminded me a bit of what we saw in 2007 when the Patriots lost to the Giants. The big difference is that instead of Eli Manning being the quarterback, it was Tom Brady, which turned it from a dogfight to a blowout. Because, the big reason why the game was close in 2007 was because the Patriots defense was good enough to limit the effectiveness of the Giants offense. Whereas here, the Chiefs defense was almost as bad as the offense was. They were terrible.
Yeah, they were bad too.
Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones both had over 5 yards per carry, so it wasn't just the passing game that was working on every play for the Buccaneers. At least seemingly the run game, the Chiefs couldn't stop that either. Just the entire the Bucs were just completely outmatched the Chiefs in every aspect of the game. Offense, defense, special teams, everything. The Chiefs just couldn't seem to get anything going. Now, to Mahomes' credit, he made a lot of really amazing plays while running for his life in the backfield. He had 3 different plays where he had no business getting the ball anywhere near a receiver. One of them just barely missed a receiver in the back corner of the end zone and was almost caught but out of bounds. And then the other two both hit his receiver in the face mask as they were falling into the end zone. So, he did what he could. He definitely got a little antsy as the game wore on. Can't blame him, though, the way that the Chiefs' offensive line was letting everybody through. But he definitely did get some happy feet. He was dealing with a toe injury that Jim Nance brought up several times that he's going to have surgery on. I think he may have already had surgery on it at this point. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was a beatdown. Eric mentioned Antonio Brown had a touchdown. Gronk had 2 touchdowns on 6 catches for 67 yards. Football Outsiders Quick Reads named him the best wide receiver / tight end of the game. And Bruce Arians, this is a guy whose family wanted him to opt out of the season because of COVID, and he decided to take the risk because he thought that this season could be magical. And man, I guess that turned out to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Arians, it seemed like he was doing a terrible job at the beginning of the season, right? Like with the play calling and having the ancient quarterback throwing the ball deep all the time. But over the course of the year, they seem like they got it worked out. Like they seem to figure out what they're supposed to be doing out there. So, Bruce Arians certainly deserves some credit for that.
Arians certainly also deserves credit for the coaching staff he put together, simultaneously one of the more diverse and least diverse staffs you've ever seen in football. And I say least only because basically everybody on that staff coached with Arians at Temple University. So as far as coaching background, maybe not quite as much diversity in how they got into things, but almost everybody on the coaching staff except for Bruce Arians is black.
Arians is the only white guy on the staff,
including the coordinators, Todd Bowles and Todd Bowles, the offensive and defensive coordinators, because apparently reporters can't tell the difference between the two of them, and they think they're talking to the defensive coordinator when they're talking to Byron Leftwich about what he did to stop Patrick Mahomes. Like, really? They don't look alike.
So bad.
They don't look alike at all.
Yeah, I guess it's good that was on Zoom, right, rather than being that's
the worst part. You're on Zoom, so don't they have the name, the names pop up on the screen?
You'd be less embarrassed if you're just sitting in your house versus in the press conference asking a really stupid question.
Well, yes.
Looking around
hide your face a lot easier.
I mean, that was obviously humorous. Leftwich took it in stride, which is annoying because he shouldn't have to take that in stride.
No, he shouldn't.
But if he actually got pissed about it, which he would have been pretty justified in getting pissed about it, he would have become the story in a negative way, which is again something we talk about a lot. But I also think it's important to mention the fact that Arians' coaching staff is the first Super Bowl winning team to feature 2 women on it.
Yep.
And we've talked a lot about how a lot of times black men don't get the fair shake in the NFL to coach as white men do. But I think that the vast majority of people that watch the NFL at least acknowledge that black men are just as capable of coaching as white men. They just think that there's some non-racist reason for it to not have some type of even distribution of opportunities.
Sure.
But people actually think that.
I think most
people only say that.
Or they at least pretend to. But people still feel comfortable outwardly expressing their contempt for female coaches.
I think people are very good at convincing themselves of things that they believe, even when they don't really. So I think that these people who say that it's a non-racist reason, I think they do legitimately believe it because they've convinced themselves of that.
Yeah, but that's most things. They believe it because they want to believe it. But when it comes to women in the NFL, we saw it last year at the Super Bowl party that we attended for Super Bowl 54, where they cut to the 49ers coach that was a woman on the sidelines, and one individual at the party got super offended and angry and started ranting about how women can't coach men.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like, this is why they're going to blow it.
This is conservatism in a nutshell. They get angry about things that don't actually matter because they're a bunch of snowflakes. That's the reality.
Yeah,
But
the,
that
the,
doesn't
the
concern
tide
you
started
that
to
there's a
turn.
woman coaching.
That's their
in a
whole life.
football
Their
game
whole life is
hundreds
worried
of
about
miles
things.
away from you.
Yeah,
Their whole life is worrying about things that doesn't concern them.
Yeah,
They can't handle the fact that situations aren't how they think it should be, even when it doesn't affect them.
I
That's
remember
what
that
gives them-
moment
comical.
because the tide was starting to turn in the Chiefs' favor, and he basically said, like, that's why the Chiefs are going to win. That's why the 49ers are going to blow, because they have a female coach on their staff. And that was when I I had been rooting for the Chiefs up to that point, and I completely turned around. I was like, okay, I hope that the 49ers find a way to pull this out just for that.
How moronic do you have to be to say something like that about somebody that's literally coaching in the damn Super Bowl?
Right.
Like,
The
doing
team made it
something
to the
right.
Super Bowl. They didn't blow it in any of the other games.
It's just unbelievable. But I mean, again, this is important though, because people need to see that somehow people need to see this, which they shouldn't. It should be obvious that anybody's capable of doing anything if they set their mind to it and they have the ability and the drive and the talent.
And
But-
the opportunity.
Yeah, of
That
course, the
certainly
opportunity
matters too, but yes.
that goes without saying. But this idea that certain people should be precluded from opportunities because of their gender they can't do it is outrageous, and it's been proven time and again that's not the case. But now it's been proven at the highest level that these women contributed to their Super Bowl win. And I think every player and every coach and every staff member on that team would agree that they don't win the Super Bowl without them.
On the losing side, Travis Kelce had a pretty nice game, 10 catches for 133 yards. It seemed like every time Mahomes was able to target him, nobody was near him. He just found the soft spot in the zone on every play. Just ended up not being enough, partly because Tyreek Hill was a no-show after just absolutely demolishing the Bucs secondary for over 200 yards in the first quarter in the regular season. We barely heard from him in this one.
Did he catch any passes?
He did. He caught a couple of passes. He had some yards. I think he might have been around 60 or 70 yards, but like this was not what we were expecting from him. He had an opportunity to catch a pass in the end zone and he let it bounce off his face mask. For all intents and purposes, and certainly compared to their regular season matchup, he was a no-show.
I mean, it certainly feels like one. Kelsey's 133 yards. Were they impactful yards?
No,
Right,
not
like-
at all.
I mean,
Not at
like
all.
when-
you
say
see
a
the
running
final
back
score,
gets-
it ended up not being impactful because nobody else could sustain the drive.
Yeah, say a running back gets 133 yards. That sticks out in your mind that y'all got dump trucked by some guy. But Kelsey 10 catches for 133. That's a huge game, and it didn't matter.
I mean, he was targeted 15 times. Quick reads did not suggest that he had a particularly strong game. He only had 13 DYAR, despite all of the playoff or the adjustments for the Buccaneers being a pretty good defense. So it does suggest that there was a little bit of an emptiness to the stat because he was just targeted so much. And even more importantly, it seemed like the Bucs kind of knew, like we talked about this, is pick your poison. Either it's going to be Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill. You got to take one of them away and take your chances with the other one. And they said, hell yeah, let's let Travis Kelce catch 10 balls because guess what? He ain't going to gain that many yards off of him. He only averaged 13 yards per catch, and they have to do that 7 or 8 times to score a touchdown. And they're not going to be able to do that with the pass rush that we're bringing. So the game plan worked. I mean, Travis Kelce was unguarded, not just unguardable like he beat somebody. There were times where he came off the line of scrimmage and nobody was guarding him because they did not bother to. So, I mean, it was empty yards. That's all there was to it. I mean, he got outplayed by Rob Gronkowski. Period. End of story. Gronk had a better, more impactful game than he did. And given the fact that Gronk is effectively, I know they're the same age, but they are not the same football age. Gronk has a lot more mileage on him. He's got a lot more injuries under his belt.
All those surgeries he kept having.
But he still brought it in a way that Kelce, I'm not going to say didn't bring it because Kelce obviously was, getting open. But at the same time, he also dropped a critical third down pass early in the game, which kind of started to set the tone for when the Chiefs' ineffectiveness was starting to set in as reality. I think that contributed a little bit to Patrick Mahomes being a little bit antsy, like Corey said. When it's early in the game, he missed a couple of throws. He missed that throw to Mecole Hardman. But then he made a couple. At that point, you've got to make those plays because you've got to get the quarterback feeling better about the situation. He knew he was under siege. He knew he was playing with a crappy line, and he knew that he was hobbled. You got to help him out. And in that moment, Kelsey did not.
My question is on the Chiefs offense, where was the screen game? Like, you're facing a pass rush that is just eating you alive. And the Chiefs are one of the best screen teams in the league. At least against the Ravens, those screens were unstoppable. Was there a screen on Sunday night? I mean, where was the type of things you typically do to slow down a ferocious pass rush?
Well,
They didn't do any of that.
Well, the Chiefs actually tried early in the game to get some of the short passing going, but the Bucs have such fast linebackers. They move sideline to sideline so quickly that they were able to chew up a lot of those opportunities. The big weakness for the Bucs was attacking them deep because their corners and their safeties were the weakness of their defense. I'm not going to say they were bad, but they were clearly the guys that were less likely to hold up against a really good attack. So they went out of their way to take that away, and they still rushed for, and they trusted their linebackers to take away everything in the middle. And for the most part, they did exactly that.
Except for Kelsey, who had a big game.
Yep. Honey Badger talked some ish to the GOAT and wound up losing. Tom Brady did have to issue an apology by text to Tyrann Mathieu after the game because he called him a bad word. But yeah, I mean, it was a frustrating day for the Chiefs defense, and Honey Badger tried to talk a big game, and it did not turn out in his favor. And then Florida man, I'm assuming that this is referring to Rob Gronkowski because I haven't seen the story, but somebody got drunk and tossed the Lombardi Trophy from one boat to another.
No, that was Tom Brady.
Oh, it was Tom Brady. I figured that was like a Rob Gronkowski move because he totally would do that. But
he tossed it to Rob Gronkowski.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Tom was on one boat, Gronk was on the other, and he, rugby pitched it, over the bay or whatever into the other boat.
Well, that's fun.
I can't even imagine. Like, remember? I think it was the Copa del Rey that got run over by a bus one time because they were partying and they dropped it off the bus. Like, what would happen if they dropped the Lombardi Trophy into Tampa Bay?
Like, I have to go get it.
Like, how do you?
It reminds me
of swim down and get it.
I mean, yeah.
It reminds me of when Mario Lemieux left the Stanley Cup at the bottom of his pool, and so there was that was when the NHL decided they were going to have professional handlers of the Stanley Cup basically monitor what happens to the cup during the offseason as players are passing it around. The Lombardi Trophy is not a traveling trophy. It is you get one, and then they make another one for the next year. So
they were about to have to make another one today.
Yeah, I mean, for sure that somebody would go down and get that damn trophy out of the water. Like, even if it's
made of silver, so it's worth it.
Yeah, and if I was a guy that knew that the Lombardi Trophy was sitting at the bottom of the bay, I'm grabbing my scuba gear and I'm going to get it, and I'm going to try to sell that thing. That's
buying scuba gear, and then you sell the trophy to make up for the cost of the scuba gear
and the scuba lessons.
Hopefully come away with a little profit there. So
when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, Harbaugh showed up to the press conference the next day, shocked and thankful that the trophy was sitting there waiting for him because they couldn't find it that night. They forgot where the trophy was. You worked your whole life to earn that thing, and we just left it somewhere.
Oops.
What? Yeah, we thought we lost it.
Which is worse, that or the Lakers leaving Quinn Cook at the stadium after winning the NBA Finals?
Losing the trophy is worse. That's kind of the point of the whole exercise.
I was worried you were going to say that.
You're worried. It's obvious, is it not? We worked our entire lives to win this trophy. We finally win it, and then we forgot it. Or we tossed it into Tampa Bay. Just whoopsie. This is...
Yeah, leaving Quinn behind. At least Quinn had the means to contact somebody and say, hey, get me out of the gym. Whereas
they left him at the
but he's still a human being.
Oh, I know.
The Lombardi Trophy doesn't even know that it's been left somewhere.
Right, which is what makes it all the more helpless. But I obviously the shenanigans that happened today were par for the course. I think it was nice that it was in Tampa Bay where they could actually enjoy themselves and have a good time in nice weather instead of it being in Foxborough or Boston or wherever the hell it used to be when Brady would win titles up there, and they'd just be freezing their asses off while the Lombardi Trophy is traveling down whatever street they're in. But there's some other points to this game. Like, a lot of people have been running their mouths, like us, which is what we're doing now, about the impacts of legacies and things like that, specifically to the losing quarterback, to Patrick Mahomes. And I find all of that, I'm not going to say distasteful, but I find it off the mark. The suggestion that this somehow hurts him. Well, it only hurts him in the sense that it was a lost opportunity that he didn't win. Like, yeah, you didn't win, so that sucks. You could have won a second. Instead, you only have one. But in reality, he played as well as you could expect any quarterback to play in those situations, which is not great because nobody plays well when they're completely under pressure and you've got guys dropping passes. Like,
but he was not the reason that the Chiefs lost that game by a long shot. And you look at Russell Wilson is still very highly regarded. He's still considered one of the top tier quarterbacks in the NFL right now. And I mean, this just kind of keeps the same career trajectory of Russell Wilson, where he made the playoffs as a rookie. He won the Super Bowl in his second year, and then he lost to Tom Brady in the Super Bowl in his third year. So why are we all rushing to say that, there's Patrick Mahomes? I get the whole baby goat thing was a little bit out there. Like, it's still early in his career.
Love it.
But to say that all of a sudden, like, he is not an awesome, amazing, top-tier quarterback, maybe the best in the NFL from a skill position right now, certainly in that conversation, is asinine. You can't make that argument.
Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
We didn't learn in this game that Patrick Mahomes played poorly from behind. He just played poorly from his behind, because he was just on it the whole game, right? What is he supposed to do? The guy is just laying out, diving, and throwing the ball 30 yards at the same time. It hits his receiver right in the head, and he drops it. Like Giselle said, he can't throw the ball and catch it too. He can't block for himself. He can't play defense, and he can't be the punter either. The punter went shankopotamus as well.
That was
his one good punt was called back, and he had to repunt it and shanked it.
Right.
Yep, that was tough. But like I said it during the game, during the 30-yard heave that got dropped by Darrell Williams in the end zone, I said that Mahomes is both the luckiest and unluckiest quarterback I've seen in my life, because he makes it's an incredible physical feat that he got the ball there. I'm not going to deny him that. But he also threw the ball into triple coverage to a third-string running back, and the ball should have been intercepted. Like, the guy had a play on it.
Maybe.
I know. I'm not saying that it was a bad throw. He had to do what he had to do.
But he did that 3 times in the game, and 3 times the only person who actually got any body part on it was his receiver. At some point, can you still call that luck?
I could call that particular play luck. The other one, the first one where Tyreek Hill dropped it, that was just a great throw. Like, that was on the money. But he's falling down.
But he did the same. He did the same thing. He was falling down. He was falling down with his back to the play. Literally turned and flung it into the back corner of the end zone, and the only person who got a hand on it was his receiver.
Well, the ball was also out of bounds, so let's not
I get
like
that, but it wasn't like way out of bounds.
Okay, but it was a throwaway. Let's be honest. He was not targeting anybody. He wasn't looking at anybody.
If it was, that was a terrible throwaway, because you don't want to, because that was in a position where a player who actually is like setting his feet in the corner could easily catch that in bounds, whether an offensive or defensive player.
I have a lot of respect for Patrick Mahomes' physical gifts. When his back is turned and he just flings the ball in some direction, I'm not going to assume that he knew what he was doing. I'm just not.
It's good that Nick Foles.
I don't know. The Buccaneers defenders seem to think that the Buccaneers players on the sideline who were watching seemed to think that he knew what he was doing watching
Well,
the sound
well,
effects from it.
Well, they were enamored with the fact that they seemingly couldn't get him on the ground, which was, again, it was really impressive that he did what he did. But I'm also not going to sit there and say it reminds me of when Aaron Rodgers kept throwing Hail Marys for a year or so. He hit like 3 Hail Marys in the span of like 16 games, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, he's such a beast at Hail Marys." I'm like, yeah, he's really physically skilled, but Hail Marys are still crapshoots. Like, that's not a play that you would say, hey, let's go do that every time because Aaron Rodgers is so good at it. Like, he made these incredible throws, but he also threw other balls in traffic that did get picked off. So it wasn't entirely, a successful run. And again, not saying that throw to Darrell Williams was a bad throw. He had to try something. And somehow it almost worked, partially because Patrick Mahomes is amazing, but partially because a DB mistimed his jump and didn't pick the ball off.
Quick rundown of Eric and my prop bets from the Super Bowl. We actually did a pretty good job. The first 6 that we picked back and forth, the person picking got right. So I went first, and I said that Mahomes would throw an interception, and he did. Eric went second. He said the first offensive play would be a pass play, and it was. I went third, said that the first to score would not win the game. I was right. Eric took the over on the anthem at 2 minutes, or 1:59, and he was right.
I was so happy when they came out and they were playing it in waltz timing. I was like, okay, this is going to be really long. I'm going to have a shot here. And it beat it by like,
was it?
I timed it like 2 minutes and 21 seconds. But
gracious.
But I also started when they started playing the guitar.
Yeah, I think I started a couple seconds later than that. But as soon as we got to the last
decisive,
2 phrases, I knew that it wasn't going to make it.
Yeah, I was worried about that. I was like, if it's at like 2:01, we might have a controversy here. But it was like cleared by 20 seconds, so it was no big deal.
I went 5th and said the game would not be tied after 0-0. I was right. Eric went 6th and said that Brady would not throw a pick. He was right. And then after that, we had a couple that the picker did not get right. So I took that the first to score would be Tampa Bay. Kansas City scored first, so Eric won that. Eric took the over 1.5 yards on the shortest touchdown. I won there, thanks to Antonio Brown catching a 1-yard touchdown pass. I took Tampa Bay to be the first to 10. That was the one other one that the picker got right. And then Eric took over 7.5 touchdowns, and we did not reach that. So I ended up winning $9 and a penny from Eric, and I will come for that penny.
Okay, I got some pennies somewhere that I could give you, but you might have to wait until after the pandemic's over because I'm not Venmoing you a cent.
No. So
you can't Venmo him 1 cent?
I don't want to, just because he's making a point of it now.
That sounds so easy to do.
He's getting a penny.
Anyway.
He's getting a penny.
I would for that penny.
Before we get
to pay up.
Oh my God. I was being facetious. Okay. Before we get to kind of a fun thing that we're going to do today, we did have some sad news this week on the NFL front as well. Marty Schottenheimer, the longtime NFL coach, died this week. And the Washington Post was really disrespectful. Their initial headline for their obituary, and if you go to the obituary, they've changed the headline, but their URL has not changed. So you can still see the whole headline in their URL. Basically called him out for all the times that he made it to the playoffs, but his teams lost there, which he took perennially bad teams like the Browns, like the Chiefs at the time, like the Chargers, and turned them into annual playoff teams. He probably would have done the same thing with Washington if Dan Snyder hadn't fired him after he took an 0-5 start to 8-8. So, even that aside, taking a cheap shot like that at a guy who just died completely uncalled for, I was really disappointed in whoever wrote that headline and whoever okayed it to go on the Washington Post website. But Marty Schottenheimer, definitely one of the best coaches that the league has ever seen. And if you're not sure if he really was that good, Eric found a tweet today looking at cumulative DVOA for teams by coach, and Marty Schottenheimer since 1985, which is as far back as DVOA goes currently. He started coaching as a head coach in 1984. He's number 3 on that list.
Yeah.
Marty Schottenheimer, to say that his team's always wilted in the playoffs, I mean, that's not really an accurate summation of his entire coaching career. Certainly not of his entire life after he just passed away. Like that just doesn't work there. But I mean, all his teams, like you said, he took all these teams that were perennially terrible. I mean, the Chiefs being good is a relatively new phenomenon. They were usually, kind of bad. And then the Chargers never win anything. Washington never wins anything, as y'all know. And then was the Cleveland Browns who never win anything. He turned those teams into playoff teams. I think he did a pretty good job. His last year coaching was 2006. He got fired after the team went 14-2. Like how you're going to fire that guy after they go 14-2? They had one of the best offenses ever that year with Damian Tomlinson and Phillip Rivers.
And Antonio Gates.
Yeah, Antonio Gates. I mean, they fired him because I don't understand.
And they replaced him with Norv Turner.
Oh, for goodness sakes!
It wasn't like they went and hired Bill Belichick or something like that. They went and got Norv Turner. Like, so they objectively.
That's still better than Washington replacing him with
Steve
Spurrier.
But Steve Spurrier was at least a great college coach, and so it was worth maybe kicking the tires on the NFL. Norv had already failed in Washington before he got, the Chargers job. I found that. Yeah,
but the Chargers probably look at that as, Washington is hopeless. They've got a terrible owner. At least Norv Turner had, he has the credentials as a Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator 2 times.
Yeah, but Norv coached Washington. A lot of that chunk was before Dan Snyder even bought the team.
Some of it was with Jack Kent Cooke.
And that was coming off of Joe Gibbs, wasn't it? Like he was.
There was somebody between. There was at least one because what was his name? Richie Pettibone, wasn't he between the two?
Yeah, he coached in 1993. He was the gap year before Norv took over in 94. But Norv was terrible, and Dan Snyder didn't buy the team until 1999. So he had basically 5 seasons with what one would consider non-dysfunctional ownership.
True. Despite
Jack Kent Cooke's other issues. Most would consider him at least an owner, not a clown.
True.
So I think that Norv proved that he couldn't do it. I mean, he took one of the flagship organizations in football and effectively ran it into the ground before Danny Boy even got there. Yep. So, I mean, he certainly didn't earn a shot in San Diego, especially replacing Martin Schottenheimer, who was one of the best coaches ever. I mean, he should go to the Hall of Fame. Like, he has a Hall of Fame resume. And, this idea that the Washington Post was just way out of line with that headline. I couldn't believe that they actually posted that because I saw the edited headline, so I assumed that the original was fake because I was like, there's no way anybody actually did that. It was
so absurd.
It was so outrageous and inappropriate. And, I remember when they fired Marty Schottenheimer, this is before I was really a big football fan, but I followed the Washington football team that year, and I remember them going 0-5, and then they rallied and they won 5 straight, and they finished 8-8. And I was like, okay, so the team's going places. We've made good progress. Then I find out, Marty Schottenheimer's been fired. We're hiring Steve Spurrier. And I'm like, why did we fire the guy that actually had us at 500? It didn't make any sense to me because my entire life watching Washington, they were never 500. They were always like 6-10. So I didn't get it. But he definitely deserves credit. I have no idea why the Chargers canned him. It wasn't his fault that Marlon McCree fumbled the ball right back to the Patriots after they picked off Tom Brady. What should have been a decisive play that sent them to the AFC Championship game that they would have hosted against the Colts, and they probably would have won because they had a better team and they wouldn't have had to go on the road. So that was a Super Bowl opportunity for the Chargers And because of some unfortunate luck, it slipped away and they got rid of the coach that got them there. It didn't make any sense.
Nope.
I've pulled up the list of head coaching wins all time in the NFL. So the only people who have more head coaching wins than Marty Schottenheimer, Don Shula, George Halas, Bill Belichick, Tom Landry, Curly Lambeau, and Andy Reid.
Are those guys good?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, they're all right.
Yeah, he's got more than Chuck Noll, Bill Parcells, Paul Brown, Bud Grant, Joe Gibbs, Bill Cowher.
Are those guys good?
Tony Dungy, Hank Stram. You know,
yeah, those guys.
a lot of good coaches
pretty
on
good
here
too. You know.
Yeah.
So, Marty Schottenheimer's son, Brian Schottenheimer, is he spent the last 3 years as the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, and he's recently been hired by the Jaguars as their passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach. So he'll be working most likely with Trevor Lawrence next season, which segues us into the last thing that we are going to talk about today, which is our super accurate, 100% guaranteed predictions on who the 32 starting quarterbacks will be in week 1 of the 2021 regular season. So we guarantee that we're going to be right, but we all have different opinions, so take that for what you will. We're going to be wrong on some of these. But so the way that we're going to do this, I'm going to go down my list from 32 down to 17 to start, because I think most of these guys we probably all have in our top 16 most confident picks, and we don't necessarily need to argue over why we think that one is a little bit more likely than the other. Most of these guys are pretty much set in. So like Patrick Mahomes, I have at number 32 with the Chiefs. Like I'm 100% sure he's going to be the Chiefs quarterback. Evan, you're looking at me like you want to disagree.
No.
Okay.
I have Chiefs, Mahomes, 32.
Just making sure. So
yep, I got him top 2.
I think I'm looking at you confused because I can't. My lowest number on here is I think 5. I put all 32 teams and I can't figure out where I made a mistake. How I didn't.
Well,
I
clearly you've got a few
repeating
numbers, so that's
Yeah.
you're gonna have to put figure that out before we put this on the blog tomorrow. But at number 31, I have Tom Brady with the Buccaneers.
I got Brady at 30. I don't have him at 31.
I put Brady 31.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have him high though.
Yeah, I have Kyler Murray ahead of him just because Brady could say, "Hey, I'm done." I don't think he will, but never know.
I mean, that's fine. But like I said, like these top 15 or 16, we're all pretty confident. So it doesn't really matter exactly, what if we have any different. I'm just reading these off, and if you don't have them in your top 16, let me know. At 30, I have Russell Wilson at the seat with the Seahawks. Any disagreement there?
I mean, I have him in my top 16, but I don't have him. I'm not very confident.
I put Russell Wilson 19 points.
So I'm guessing this has to do with. So this week, Russell Wilson, complained about the offensive line production and wants more of a say. And then I guess today, Brandon Marshall, either today or yesterday, Brandon Marshall, who spent some time with him in Seattle, seemed to suggest that he's trying to look for a way to get out of Seattle in a classy way. I just don't see that happening.
Which Brandon Marshall is this?
The wide receiver Brandon Marshall, not the defensive player who was with the I think he was with the Broncos. Yeah, the wide receiver Brandon Marshall said this. So I don't read anything into that. I don't see any reason not to think that he's going to be the Seahawks quarterback next year. At 29, I have Matt Stafford with the Rams.
I put him 26. Yeah, same thing.
Eric, you good on that?
Yeah, I got him at 29 as well.
28, I've got Ryan Tannehill with the Titans.
I said 24.
Yeah, I've got him a little lower, but in the same tier of pretty much a lock.
27, Justin Herbert with the Chargers.
That's what I said exactly.
Yeah, I'm like 26, same boat.
Okay. 26, Josh Allen with the Bills.
Again, a little higher, same boat.
I said 28.
Lamar Jackson with the Ravens, 25.
I said 30.
Again, I'm at like, 27 there for him.
Okay. Yeah, I figured Evan might have him a little bit higher, but he's going to be with the Ravens.
Yeah.
24. I know Eric had him at 30 or 31. I had Kyler Murray with the Cardinals.
I had 25.
Okay. 23. Baker Mayfield with the Browns.
I said 29.
Okay. I mean that's fine. 22. I have Aaron Rodgers with the Packers.
I got Rodgers lower than that.
I figured you might because you've kind of expressed that you think that they could move on. Evan, where do you have Rodgers?
I have Rodgers on the Colts with 9 points.
Really?
Yeah. I think he's gone.
He's still got 2 years left on his contract, and I know that the guaranteed money is all gone. So they could cut him. They could save some money against the cap because neither of his last 2 years are guaranteed. But this guy is coming off an MVP season, some of his best football of his career. I don't see any way in hell the Packers let him go.
Packers don't know what they're doing. Okay? They drafted Jordan Love. Now they're committed to this guy rather than the MVP quarterback. The MVP is going up the road.
Well, if he's going to Indianapolis, technically that's down the road. But no, I don't see that happening.
Not down the road. It's south. That's south and down aren't the same thing.
Whatever. Eric.
I'm obviously in between you guys on this one. I'm not very confident. Or not. I think it's likely he'll be with the Packers next year. Because they maybe they can cut him because they don't have any guaranteed money. There's no way in hell they're cutting Aaron Rodgers.
They're gonna trade him.
Okay, but if they trade him, they have to get something worthwhile in return, which should be almost everything. So I don't see how the Packers, who just got to the NFC Championship game, are in a better position by getting rid of the guy that got them there. And in this case, unlike last year, he got them there this year. He's the reason they made it there. He was the best player in the league. And, I mean, if my reason for thinking Rodgers might not be with the Packers is not because the Packers just say, hey, let's get rid of this guy. It's because Rodgers might want to leave, and he might force his way out. Like, he's shown a little bit of – he's had some cryptic conversations with the media about his future. He certainly hasn't indicated a whole lot of happiness with how the season ended. So it's a little up in the air, but ultimately I think he's going to end up being back.
31 quarterbacks are going to be unhappy with the way the season ended. You can't just
leave. But they don't
because
usually
of
bitch
that.
about it like he did. Like, he was whining about it.
He's very competitive, so I don't know how much I buy it.
I mean, the Packers' last quarterback that they had, who's currently in the Hall of Fame, his last game in the Packers was also a home NFC Championship game loss. So,
I fully expect to pick up pick up some points on you guys with that one in our confidence pool.
I put Jordan Love 5 points. Packers.
Really? All
Yeah.
right. Well, we'll get down there in a minute. At 21, I've got Jared Goff, 21 points for the Lions.
Lions.
I have him a little lower, but not
That's a 20 for the Goff. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not super confident in him being there just because I know the Lions don't actually want him, but they've got no choice. They're stuck with him. So
yeah, I mean, you just traded for. I mean, I guess you also got the pick, so you're not married to him, but I mean, you traded for his contract, and I don't think the Lions are going to be able to turn around and offload his contract.
I don't think they're going to offload his contract either, but I think that if they get an opportunity to draft a quarterback that they really like,
they might do that, but I don't think that quarterback would necessarily start over Goff week 1.
I don't think so either, but if there's another quarterback that they like that's in the building, it increases the probability of it by some amount, which is what this is all about. I still think it's almost certain that he's going to be the quarterback.
True. At number 20, I've got Kirk Cousins with the Vikings.
I've got Vikings 17.
Okay.
Oh, I have 2 17s on here. I see that. So
okay, so there's one of your mistakes. At number 19, I've got Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles.
That's my other 17.
There you go. So pick your poison. Which one's 17? Which one's 16?
Yeah.
I do not agree with Jalen Hurts being the Eagles quarterback.
No? Okay. So who do you have for the Eagles then?
I think they're going to draft Justin Fields and he's going to start week 1.
What's your confidence on that?
3 points.
Okay.
Not much, but
I mean, once you start getting to the incoming
Replacing
rookies and you're
quarterbacks,
predicting them, you have to go kind of low because you don't know for sure which quarterback a team is going to take. Justin Fields might start in week 1, but it might not be for the Eagles. We just don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah, so when we get to those rookie quarterbacks, I mean, we're really kind of throwing darts on most of them, except most likely Trevor Lawrence. All right, so Evan and I both, relatively confident that Jalen Hurts will be the Eagles starting quarterback. Eric thinks that they'll draft somebody. At number 18, I've got Dak Prescott with the Cowboys. And I'm a little bit higher than I feel like maybe I should be on him, but I've got him at 18.
I'm a little lower, but he's kind of in the same tier as guys like Jared Goff, because I think they're ultimately going to bring him back. But again, just the Cowboys don't know what the hell they're doing. They're messing around with this guy. They just had the stupid video, like the hype video for the team, where they didn't include the best player on the team, who is Dak Prescott. I mean, there's no way that was a mistake.
They've said it was an oversight, like a whoopsie. Like, no, you did that on purpose, and it's so obvious that you did it on purpose, and it's so obvious that you're lying to us when you say it was a mistake.
Yeah, that's like the NFL graphics, like for the playoffs. In the aftermath of the ridiculousness that was Deflategate, and they would show the playoff quarterbacks, and somehow Tom Brady wouldn't be in there. I'm like, he's the most famous one. You didn't just leave him out by accident. Come on now.
Yeah, that's not a mistake. Come on.
At number 17, I already know Eric disagrees with this. I have Teddy Bridgewater for the Panthers.
Oh, I don't even have Teddy Bridgewater on here. I forgot somebody. I put the Panthers are drafting Zach Wilson out of BYU.
Okay.
Actually, Corey, I don't disagree with you on Teddy Bridgewater. I'm just not as confident.
So you actually do have him with the Panthers?
Yeah, I do think they're going to draft a quarterback, but I think Teddy Bridgewater will be Teddy Bridgewater and will bridge the gap to the next quarterback. Yeah,
that's brutal, Eric.
I know. I heard it from somebody else. I had to repeat it because it was so
Goodness gracious.
But anyway, I've got Teddy Bridgewater at like 10 confidence points. I kind of grouped them together. I'm trying to count.
Okay. At number 16, I've got Joe Burrow for the Bengals. And the only reason I have him down around this area is because I know that he's going to be with the Bengals. The question is, did those torn knee ligaments come too late in the season for him to start week 1? The Bengals talked this week and said that they feel pretty confident that he'll start week 1. But, I mean, that's up to his body and whether it actually recovers fully in time.
Yeah, I'm in the same ballpark with you there. Again, he's obviously going to be their starting quarterback when he's healthy, but I sure as hell wasn't going to pick God knows what backup.
Right? Yeah. Who else would be starting for them? Like, it'd be a shot in the dark. I guess it could be Brandon Allen.
It could be Ryan Finley again?
Ryan Finley, yeah, one of the two of them.
Yeah, so I went with Burrow with moderate confidence just because there's a pretty good chance he'll be back, and like his probabilities are so much higher than anybody else you could name.
Yeah. At 15, I went ahead and put Trevor Lawrence with the Jaguars.
I have him at 22. Thank you.
That's low. Yeah, I've got him up there with Baker and Cousins at like in the low 20s.
Okay. I mean, I can see that too.
Yeah, the only reason why I put him that low was because he will be an incoming rookie. So there's a chance that maybe he doesn't show enough in training camp that they say, let's give him a couple weeks extra to
behind Gardner Minshew.
I don't know.
He's better than Gardner Minshew.
Of course we do, but we also knew that, or maybe we didn't know it, but people should have known that Justin Herbert was better than Tyrod Taylor. And they had to stab him in the lung to get Herbert in the game.
I was convinced just by watching Hard Knocks that Justin Herbert was better than Tyrod Taylor.
And it's no disrespect to Tyrod.
No.
Because I thought Baker Mayfield was better than him too, and he didn't start week 1 for the Browns when he was a rookie.
Yep.
And the number 1 pick.
Yep. At number 14, I've got Ben Roethlisberger for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh. I put Kyle Trask for the Steelers. Only 4 points. That's my lowest number because I screwed up a lot.
Yeah, I agree with Corey. I think Ben's coming back, and the only possible football team Ben can play for this year is the Steelers. The cap implications make him an immovable object as far as contracts go. So if he comes back, it's going to be with Pittsburgh.
Yep. At number 13, I've got Derek Carr with the Raiders. I know that there's been some rumors about them potentially trying to, make a trade or something. I don't think it's going to happen. And even if it did, I don't know who they're going to necessarily get to replace him. So I just went with who's already there, and that's Derek Carr.
I put Carr for 8 with the Raiders. I'm like, I guess Carr.
I've got Carr at 12, so not a whole lot of confidence just because Gruden seems to hate him, but Gruden's hated him for the last 3 years, and yet he's still the starter. So he's still under contract, and he's still pretty good. The alternatives, I don't think, are there for Oakland or Las Vegas. So I think it's going to be him again.
At number 12, I've got a guy who I actually just moved up a few spots today, Taylor Heinicke for the Washington football team.
Oh, okay. I thought I was going to be the only one who put Heinicke. He was the last name I filled in. 6 points for him. WFC.
Yeah, I think I had him like between 6 and 8 initially, and then I bumped him up a few after he signed his extension today.
Yeah, I've got Heinicke, team 7. So,
yeah, I mean, certainly it's possible that it could be Alex Smith. I think Alex Smith is still under contract for 2 more years. So assuming he comes back, but I don't know. I mean,
he's not coming back.
At this point, I think that he's overpaid for his value, and even though you'd end up eating some bit of a cap penalty there, I think Washington can move off of him.
Yeah, there's no. You can't overpay a guy, or you absolutely are overpaying a guy that's playing below replacement level. I mean, let's be honest. Alex Smith is not. Love the guy. Love what he did this year. Rightfully was named.
But he's not playing at the level that he was when we signed him to that contract.
Yeah, and understandably so. He's operating with compromised parts. It's just it's not possible to expect that from him. So I just don't think that he's going to be back. I think he proved something incredible, and then I think that's going to be it. Which is fantastic for him. But I think it's going to be Heinicke.
At 11, I've got Eric's boy Drew Lock for the Denver Broncos.
I've actually got him a little higher just because I don't see the Broncos being able to do anything with him. I mean, he's only going into his 3rd year, and he hasn't played so badly that a team can just move off of him when he's on a rookie deal. They got to give him a 3rd year.
I mean, I for one am actually very interested to see what he does with healthy receivers. Jerry Jeudy will be going into his 2nd year. He'll be getting his name is slipping me, but the receiver who tore. What's that?
Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton, who tore his ACL before the season even began. Tim Patrick had a pretty solid season. They had a couple other promising receivers who, I mean, with the whole group of them plus Noah Fant, I think that he could be okay.
Yeah, Noah Fant, who was a good tight end, by the way.
Yeah,
for fantasy.
Yeah, no, I know. So was Rob Gronkowski, by the way.
It wasn't TE6 though.
I think he was like 7 or 8 at the end of the year. He was a lot closer to my prediction than he was yours.
Nah, he was actually closer to the 11th ranked TE than he was to the 6th. So I'm going to stick by that.
Well, by points, not by rank.
Yes, well, we win by points, not by ranking. So
at number 10, I've got Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins.
I've got Tua Tagovailoa for the Houston Texans.
What?
So, yeah.
I think that trade's kind of crazy, but the
crazy.
Texans make crazy trades.
That is not going to happen.
Dolphins.
They make crazy trades.
The Texans will not trade with a team that has any prospect of making the playoffs. I guarantee that.
But if they trade Watson to anybody, that team instantly becomes
not
a team
anybody. There is one team, and that's the team that you guys will see that I have him going to.
It's probably the Jets.
It is the Jets.
Yeah. Well,
Jets.
that is the only. If Deshaun Watson plays next year, it will be for the Jets because he won't play for the Texans because he'll hold out if they don't move him, and the Texans will not send him to any other team.
They won't send him to any other team.
besides the Jets.
Why?
Because they're the only team where he will be banished to NFL Siberia and will never be able to win, at least not initially.
I think we're overstating how bad the Jets are. I think they've got enough pieces that Watson could make something happen.
I mean, maybe, but the Texans at this point, I'm convinced the Texans hate Deshaun Watson, so they will be petty about this.
He hates them back, but
well, sure, but that's not what matters here. What matters here is that the Texans, the team that decides whether or not to trade him, hate him.
Poor David Culley. This just isn't right.
Yeah.
He's going to lose the franchise quarterback, and if Corey's correct, and I'm not saying that I think you could be right about this. I'm not saying that your ideas are totally crazy. Then not only are they going to trade Deshaun Watson, but they're going to move him for pennies on the dollar for spite.
Mm-hmm. Like what they did with DeAndre Hopkins.
Like, how does that help anybody that works for the team currently? It doesn't. So
nobody. And it doesn't help the people. And it doesn't help the people make this trade because they're all getting fired too.
So we can talk more about that later, but first, who do you guys have for Miami?
Tonga Vailoa.
Oh, I've got Deshaun Watson because I said that.
Oh, right. That's right. Okay. Where do you have Tua at on your list, Evan? I have
Miami,
number 10.
16.
That's 16. Okay. At number 9, I have New Orleans Saints, Jameis Winston.
I put Winston for 18 points.
Wow. I've got Winston for 8.
Yeah, I mean, my concern there is just that Jameis is, his contract is up, so there's no guarantee that he's going to re-sign with them. But I think that
he's also Jameis Winston. I mean, it's not like he's that hot of a commodity.
No.
But I mean, all these teams that need quarterbacks. I mean, did they feel like the quarterback they're getting rid of, they feel like he didn't throw enough interceptions?
Yeah. I feel like the Saints, like Jameis is the most valuable to the Saints compared to other teams because Jameis has been in the building for the last year. And, there seems to be some level of interest that Sean Payton has in him, despite the fact that he's Jameis. So Sean has clearly seen something in Jameis that goes beyond the NFL public's view of him, which is a pick machine. Now, we've always been a little higher on Jameis than the average folks because we've seen his talent and we understand that he doesn't always throw 30 interceptions. That happened once, and that he's been effective at times when he's not throwing the picks. So if you could tease that out of his game, you might be able to salvage a pretty effective quarterback.
Fair enough. Next on my list, pull this back up. I've got it number 8, New York Giants, Daniel Jones.
I got Jones higher than that. I've got him like 19th. Because again,
19.
Yeah.
I put him at 11.
I mean, what are they going to do? They're not going to move him. They're going to draft a quarterback?
They could. They've got, the third pick?
They should.
They're not drafting a
quarterback. No, they're later than that because they ended up winning games late in the season.
Miami has the third pick.
Yeah. I think the Giants are actually in the low teens because they
ended
up winning 2 games at the
They're not going to be in position to draft a quarterback, at least not one that they can feel any confidence in unless they trade up. And they've got Daniel Jones, who for some reason they believe in. Like they do. Like that's been they have had some ridiculous belief in this kid since the day they picked him, which was a terrible decision because he sucks. And he has sucked his rookie year and he sucked this year, but they're still all in on Danny Dimes. Yeah. I think that I feel pretty good that he's going to be starting for them.
Fair enough. At number 7, for the Atlanta Falcons, I have Justin Fields.
Oh, I also have Justin Fields with the Falcons. 13 mil.
Oh, whoa! Okay, that's kind of high
rookie.
for a rookie who you don't know where he's going to land.
Wow.
Like he could be drafted before the Falcons, but okay.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think the Falcons can draft a quarterback. They might, but I still think they're going to have Matt Ryan on the books unless they can move him. I think he's going to at least start week 1. I mean, I don't see him getting benched even if they draft a quarterback because Matt Ryan is not – I think he's declined, but I don't think he's so bad that he's unstartable, especially for a rookie. I think he's going to play for the Falcons this year.
Maybe.
Well,
I don't even have Matt Ryan as one of my 32 starting quarterbacks.
I don't have him on here either. I probably should.
What do you think he's going to do?
I don't
You
know.
think he's going to retire or be a backup? He's not that bad.
He was pretty bad this year.
He's not that bad. Backup quarterback, Matt Ryan. He's like 35.
Maybe. But he's not good anymore.
He's not great, but he's NFL starter.
I toyed with putting him with the 49ers, but I ended up actually at number 6. I put Zach Wilson with the 49ers.
That's an idea.
I have Deshaun Watson on the 49ers. But going back to Matt Ryan right quick, I think the Falcons, they need to do a complete rebuild. Because if they don't, like, they're just going to be in the toilet for like a decade plus. Like, they need to trade Julio Jones. They need to trade everybody and everything that's not tied down. So Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, just start fresh. Try to accumulate as much draft capital as possible so you can rebuild this team.
So Matt Ryan was 15th in DVOA this year, so he's middle of the pack. He's good enough to start. Come on. Not in the league as a starter? No way.
I just didn't know where to put him. I don't think he's going to be with Atlanta, and I didn't know where to put him for sure. I definitely toyed with the Kyle Shanahan reunion in San Francisco, but I went with Zach Wilson there. At number 5, I've got Kyle Trask with the New England Patriots.
I put Jimmy Garoppolo with the
Patriots.
So did I.
Jimmy G is another quarterback who I do not have starting next year. At least not to begin the year.
You have who'd you say was on the Patriots?
Kyle Trask.
Kyle Trask.
Who you had much higher with somebody else. I forget who you had him with.
I have on the Steelers for 4 points.
Oh, so lower, but with the Steelers.
That's probably going to turn into a 1 because I have 2 17s and at least two other numbers.
Yeah, you need to fix those up for the blog. Yeah. But yeah, so you guys both have Jimmy G with the Patriots. I mean, I could see that. I mean, there's the history there and everything. At number 4, I have with the Chicago Bears, Carson Wentz.
I've got Wentz with the Colts at 6.
I have for 14 points in the Chicago Bears, Carson Wentz.
14.
That's a lot of points for a guy who's not there yet.
Yeah,
I think I was a little bit too tickled by on PTI the past couple weeks how much Wilbon hates Carson Wentz, and Tony keeps saying he's going to the Bears. He's going to the Bears. They're going to trade for him. Not like the Bears have ever had a good quarterback in their history. Just have another guy roll in there who sucks and can't do anything right.
They had some luck.
Yeah, because things worked so well for the former Eagle who actually won the Super Bowl. Why not go and get the guy who didn't play in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, exactly. Carson Wentz to da Bears.
Yeah, I've got to da Bears with 4 points. I've got Mac Jones.
Mac Jones. I forgot about Mac Jones.
I did not pick him as one of my rookie starters. I think. I think that he may start at some point next year, but I just don't see it happening week 1. He doesn't have enough game reps in college.
I don't think that matters because we've seen people just come into the league and play. But the reason why I said Mac Jones is because it's not because I think he's one of the better rookies, but I think he's the best one that the Bears are going to get. Because I think the Bears might move up and get him. And then it's going to come down to, does he beat Trubisky out for the job? And well, Matt Nagy hates Mitch Trubisky, and Mitch Trubisky's not very good, although he is the MVP, so let's give a little respect.
Which is why, at 3 points to the Indianapolis Colts, I have Mitchell Trubisky.
That's crazy.
So you've got Mitch Trubisky starting in the NFL next year, but not Matt Ryan?
I do.
What is happening?
Michael McCorkle Jones, also known as Mac Jones, was born in 1998, so in case you don't feel old yet. But he's kind of an older rookie, to be honest.
Yeah, he is.
Going to be 23. I mean, he's not a Brandon Whedon who's
29. Yeah. Old man playing college football.
That means he was almost as old as Tom Brady.
All right, so who do you guys have with the Colts?
I
That's the
said
question.
Aaron Rodgers.
You have Aaron Rodgers with the Colts.
I had to put him somewhere.
That would be interesting. First you get Phillip Rivers, and then you get Aaron Rodgers. What's next? You're going to get Tom Brady? Just moving up the ladder?
It's possible.
Hey, if the Colts want to take Tom Brady and move him out of the NFC South, that's cool. Although that would be hilarious because Colts fans hate Tom Brady, like probably more than any fans outside of AFC East fans. So
I did play, just to spite Eric, I did play with the idea of putting Aaron Rodgers on the Falcons.
I mean, whatever at this point.
Not that ridiculous.
But that's also, I don't know if Aaron would want to go there. I imagine he has a no trade clause that he would have to waive. I don't know if
Sure,
he would
but I
settle.
mean, why not? You got Calvin Ridley, who's really good. You've got Julio Jones, who still has something in the tank.
You got a mediocre offensive line, no run game, and a terrible defense. I mean,
And a rookie coach,
yeah. Who did they hire again? I forgot.
Arthur Smith.
Oh yeah, FedEx.
The Titans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's who I've got there. And then the last two are linked for me because at number 2, I have Sam Darnold for the Texans. And at number 1, I have Deshaun Watson for the Jets.
You think they just swapped for each other?
Well, I mean, and picks. Like, Jets will get some picks. Or we'll send some picks, rather.
I think Darnold stays with the Jets. They don't know what they're doing either.
How many points do you have on Darnold with the Jets?
7 points.
Okay.
And then with the Texans, I have Trey Lance for 6 points. He's a rookie out of North Dakota State.
That he's also not a guy who I have starting week 1.
Apparently, North Dakota State only played 1 game this season. Because of him, right? It was to showcase him for draft possibility. So, yeah. But other than that, their season was canceled. I don't even remember who they played in their 1 game.
So I've got Jimmy Garoppolo with the Patriots. I think we mentioned that already.
Yeah.
I've got Sam Darnold playing for the 49ers. I needed to put him somewhere, so I was like, all right, where's this guy gonna
You don't
go?
need to. He could just not start anywhere.
Yeah, but I had to pick somebody to pick that last spot. I didn't know who it was going to be. I mean, I guess it could be a rookie, but I don't know.
So in that case, who do you have for the Jets?
Who do I? Damn, I gotta find this. Jets, where are they on? Oh, I got Zach Wilson.
Okay. What's your confidence level on that?
Like 5.
Okay. So not
it's very low on
Yeah,
all these rookies. I don't trust
exactly.
any.
In line with
Except
all
for
of us.
Trevor Lawrence. That's the only one where I'm like, okay, he's gonna play for the Jags.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there you have it. Those are our completely accurate, guaranteed. This is going to happen. Week 1 NFL starters. All of us are going to be right somehow, even though that's not physically possible. But we'll get these up on the blog in the next couple days, so you guys can take a look through those. And when we get to September, after week 1 is in the books, we'll go through and count these up and see who was the most accurate. So that should be fun.
In 7 months.
In 7 months. Hopefully we remember to do this by then.
Remember.
So that is everything on our sheet of things that we need to talk about today. Obviously, the Super Bowl was the big thing this week. Hopefully you guys, were able to enjoy it for what it was, not among the more exciting games that we've seen in the past decade and a half, but still, what a show by Tampa Bay, offensively and defensively. They dominated that game, and as much as it was annoying not to get another instant classic, I definitely can appreciate the performance that the Bucs put on the field, because that was amazing. So at this point, we kind of enter a little bit of a lull. Our next show, Eric will have his State of the NBA, and we'll get caught up on some of that stuff, and we may have a little bit of news from other sports, and maybe
Baseball.
some trickling stuff from the NFL, early off-season stuff. But we're also going to start turning our attention a little bit toward baseball. The 3 of us are going to play in a fantasy baseball league this year. First time, I I think for all of us that we've played fantasy baseball in at least 7 or 8 years.
I played fantasy baseball last year.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
So Evan played last year, but for Eric and me, it's been a long time since we've played fantasy baseball. So I think this should be kind of fun. We started a little 8-team league along with a couple of our regular listeners, Drew and Sean, and a few other friends that we were able to find who were interested in playing. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll get that started here in a couple of months once baseball really gets rolling. But in the meantime, any shout-outs from either of you guys?
Yeah, I got a couple. I mentioned earlier in the show that the Buccaneers were the first team to have 2 female coaches on their team. I wanted to give them shout-outs by name because we talk about Todd Bowles and Byron Leftwich, and we mentioned all of the male coaches by name. But their names are Maral Javadifar and Lori Locust. Those are the first female coaches to win a Super Bowl as a part of an NFL franchise. So full credit to them. And on a slightly pettier note, shout out to Antoine Winfield for giving Tyreek Hill the deuces as he knocked down that 4th down pass to him, as Tony Romo was oddly complaining about it like it was just the worst thing in the world, even though Tyreek Hill deserves it more than anybody else because he's the guy that when he cooks people, he literally gives them the peace sign as he's cruising by them, which he specifically did to Winfield back in Week 12 when they met during the regular season. So Winfield got his petty on, got a little bit of revenge. It didn't hurt them at all because there was already the turnover on downs. Corey mentioned he thinks that rule should change. I couldn't disagree more because other than if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have gotten one of these, and it was excellent. So
fair enough.
Credit.
And I wasn't aware of the depth of the backstory. I didn't realize that Tyreek Hill had done that to Antoine Winfield back in Week 12.
He waited. He held it there until he knew Tyreek Hill saw him. Like he waited for him to look up and see the deuces in his face.
Which
and I
is
was like,
glorious because as everybody knows, I believe in vengeance. Hats off to Antoine Winfield. That was amazing. Like you harbored that for all this time, and then you finally get back at him.
As the game is about to end, no less.
And the great thing was that he was able to do it because he made a good play.
Yep.
It wasn't like Javon Wims when he snatched C.J. Gardner-Johnson's mouthpiece and he started fighting him. It's like, no, you didn't get your revenge by being a better football player. You just picked a fight after he embarrassed him.
And it wasn't because another defensive player made a good play and you just came in to revel in the glory. Yeah, he made it. He made the play.
How defensive backs, they celebrate incomplete when the ball's thrown in the stands or something.
Right.
They didn't make a play. They're just like,
Yeah, they got beat by 5 steps, but Josh Allen overthrew the guy by 10 yards. Look at me! It's like, nah, dude, you got cooked.
That drives me nuts. I hate that so much.
Yeah, that wasn't what happened on this play either.
Any shout-outs from you, Evan?
No, I don't think so. Shout out to my sister, Farron Ash. She started a podcast. The name of it, I can't remember.
You are a terrible brother.
So she came on here, kicked our ass at confidence points, and then makes her own show. This is bad news for us.
Yeah, that's terrible news for us.
I think her show already has more listeners than ours.
Oh, jeez.
So, maybe we need to leech off of that and get a little credit. Maybe you should remember her name or the name of her podcast.
I remember my sister's name.
Yeah, but the name of her podcast, so that way maybe she could shout out our show on hers. But since you're being
so we can get some listeners.
Yes.
Maybe you need to go on her show and then try and scoop a few people our way.
Yeah, her show is called Peacemakers and Anger. Or no, that's the first episode. The name of the show is, I think it's called Keeping the Peace.
Okay.
Is it
a sports podcast or?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. What's it about?
That is
he doesn't
another
know.
good question.
Jeez, you are such a terrible brother.
This is sloppy plugging.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, hopefully by next week, Evan has figured out what it's about and we can give Farron a little plug. But shout out to her. Congratulations on starting a new podcast. And congratulations on that 1 week that you came on and definitely did kick our asses in confidence points. So
here's the description. Are you a 9 on the Enneagram? Do you know and love an Enneagram 9 in your life? Then this is the podcast for you. Join this 9W1 as I try to be my full self and encourage you to do the same and explore topics that challenge nines.
So it's
Episode
an
1
Enneagram
keeps me-
podcast. I don't myself buy into the Enneagrams. Rashonda has tried to kind of get me into a little bit of that. I don't think that she's super into it either. But yeah, I mean, if that's your thing, give Farron's podcast a listen.
I think it would be it's at a higher intellectual level than this podcast, right? Like this podcast is just foolishness. She's talking about real life type stuff.
I don't have any specific shout outs this week, but I do want to remind everybody, as Evan always says when he's closing out the show, wash your hands, wear a mask, bathe, take care of yourselves, get the vaccine when you are able to. Don't skip out on it. Vaccine is safe. The vaccine is good. The vaccine will help us actually get back to normal at some point soon. So when it's available and you can get it, get it. I've not been able to secure an appointment for myself yet, but you can be sure as soon as I can, I will be getting the first dose, and I'll be getting the second dose as soon as I need to get that one. So if that is it, I'll go ahead and sign off. We thank you guys for listening as we do every week. We expect to be back next week because none of us have anything better to do, so there's no reason to take a week off for us. So we should be back next week with another episode. Until then, wash your hands, stay safe, enjoy the little break between the football and the baseball season, and if you're into it, watch some hockey and basketball now that you don't have anything else distracting you. For Eric and for Evan, I'm Corey Puffett. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.